everyone. Good afternoon from Ghana, and thank you for taking the time to join today's session. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Let us all take a minute to introduce ourselves in the chat box. Let us know your name, your country, the institution and organization you are joining from. Yes, so I'll start off. My name is Rita from Ghana. I'm the West African Hub Coordinator of the Education Collaborative here at Ashesi University. You can also do the same by mentioning that or putting that in the chat box so that we know you. Thank you all. Once again, you are all welcome to the second session of the Entrepreneurship Month series that's led by the Entrepreneurship Community of Practice here at the Education Collaborative. Today's session will explore hands-on approaches to ensuring equity and active participation of young African women in the entrepreneurial space and ecosystem as part of the International Women's Day celebrations. And to lead today's session is Mrs. Nneka Okekearu, who is the Director and Head of Gender at the Enterprise Development Center of Pan-Atlantic University. Nneka has over 20 years of experience in entrepreneurship, gender, economic inclusion, and leadership. She's very passionate about creating pathways for process improvements for entrepreneurs through sustainable and innovative solutions. She has mentored numerous women and youth under the auspices of the Vital Voices Grow, Michigan State University Global Youth Advancement Network, and countless other platforms. Now, let us all welcome Nneka, who will lead today's session together with other panelists for today's session. Thank you, Nneka. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, my sister Rita from another mom all the way in Accra, Ghana. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're logging in from. It's a pleasure to be here. And to all the she for she's and the he for she's, I say happy International Women's Day. It is indeed a wonderful and glorious day. Just like Rita said, we will be having a very robust and insightful conversation as to how we can get more women to participate in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And to do justice to that, we've got some Amazons that will be sharing with us. So I'm going to start introducing them. So the first person I'm going to introduce is somebody that every MSME that we know want to be her friend, because she's coming from a space where, they make things happen with what they do there. It's my pleasure to introduce Hamdiya Ismaila. Hamdiya Ismaila has almost 20 years experience in SME finance and investment. So you see what I mean by saying that you want her to be your best friend. She's coming from the space where they make things happen. She has over 10 years experience in venture capital private equity fund structuring. She currently is the general manager of the Venture Capital Trust Fund, where she oversees the investments and general operations of the trust. She's an angel investor and was instrumental in designing the Ghana Angel Investor Network. She's also a director of the Ghana Angel Fund and a founder of the Lady Angel Network, where they do investments with a gender lens. Ms. Ismaila holds an executive certificate in private equity and venture capital from Harvard Business School. She has a master's of public administration from Columbia University in the city of New York. And she has a BBA honors from Monroe College and an LLB degree from Gimpa Law School. So you can see when I say that we have Amazons, I wasn't joking. Welcome, Hamdiya. The next panelist I will be introducing is Akpene. Akpene, forgive me, I'm a Nigerian and I might brutalize some of the names, but bear with me. You're all my sisters. If I asked you to pronounce my surname, I think you'd also struggle as well. So she's a business development analyst and also an entrepreneur. with almost 10 years experience in using tech to improve businesses in the creative industry. She's highly skilled in business communication and interpersonal skills, team management, and she's inspired to apply her problem-solving analytical skills to support businesses on the continent by providing them data-centric insights to achieve their business goal. She's currently pursuing her MSc in Information Technology, majoring in IT entrepreneurship at Carnegie Mellon University in Kigali, Rwanda. She's a board member and treasurer of the Dream Big NGO. She has also served as a business mentor at Ashesi Venture Incubator. And very interesting, I see that Akpene wears multiple hats. She was also Miss Universe Ghana from 2018 to 2020. This is going to be a very, very engaging and interesting conversation we're going to be having. The next person I'm going to be introducing is just like Akpene. She's also an entrepreneur. So Didintle Moreki is an entrepreneur who founded Organic Natural Skincare. And this is a platform that she set up when she had trauma managing her own skincare issues. So, in the entrepreneurship space, we're always talking about how it is from the opportunities that we see that we create certain ventures. She set up this at 16. And currently, the product, Organic Natural Skincare, has been exported to Zambia, South Africa, Lesotho, and then the United States under the AGOA trade. The enterprise is a continental fair trade accredited by the Swaziland Fair Trade to promote sustainable living and fair wages to its employees and community. With just 3 years of operations, she's in 46 stores. The product is in 46 stores in Botswana, and they have a team of 9 people. Now, I left my sister for the last. The last person joining us, I say my sister, is Rose Keffas, who is from Lagos, Nigeria. So Rose is a developmental specialist. She's a result-oriented, she's a strategic leader with more than 15 years experience. She currently serves as the Special Assistant on Policy, Strategy and International Relations and Special Advisor to the President of Nigeria on the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is something she's been doing for since March 2016. She's highly skilled in planning. She's an award-winning SDG advocate known for her outstanding commitment on youth development and the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria. In 2020, Rose was awarded the most influential, she was one of those awarded the most influential people of African descent government under 40, as well as one of the women that was awarded under the 100 Women Creating a Better World, as well as 100 Career Women. Welcome, Rose. Okay, so these are the Amazons that we're going to be having the conversation with. And just before I start throwing the main questions, I want to hear from all of you. So probably starting with Rose and then working all the way back, just the way we started. Your thoughts on entrepreneurship, especially today that we're celebrating International Women's Day. What are your thoughts on entrepreneurship? And then we'll take it from there. So I'll start with Rose. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat it? Sorry, I lost you, sorry.
Okay, so I said we are having a conversation around how we can get more women into the entrepreneurship space. That's a conversation that we're having. You represent public sector because you're currently in public sector, but there's no way you wouldn't have some thoughts on entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship, the journey, entrepreneurship education, entrepreneurship management, what your thoughts are on entrepreneurship? So from your perspective, from the current hat that you're wearing.
Okay, thank you so much. Happy International Women's Day. My name is Rose. I work for the SDG office in Nigeria, where we have the mandate of the SDG implementation. And I would just quickly say, for me, as I was once an entrepreneur and now working for the government. I think entrepreneurship is very key for the attainment of the SDGs under SDG 5, Empower Women, and SDG 8. So for me, I just think how we could get more women is through empowerment, and also something that's very critical is access to finance, access to information. So for me, what is very important for every woman or every entrepreneur is access.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So when you talked about access to finance, access to IT, I think we can now throw the ball over to Akpene and Hamdiya to answer, because one is wearing IT and one is wearing funding. So Akpene, over to you. Your thoughts on entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much, Nneka, and thank you very much for being here today, and happy International Women's Day. So for me, as somebody who has gone through the entrepreneurship education and has been an educator myself, and now in the space of IT entrepreneurship, I believe that entrepreneurship is a tool that will basically help families and communities get out of poverty and to create economic development and economic empowerment for communities through women, because as we know, majority of families and communities on the African continent can be changed when women are empowered. So for me, it is a tool that can be used to basically uplift the lives of a whole community and a whole nation.
Thank you very much, Akpene. Hamdiya, your thoughts on entrepreneurship? You're muted, Hamdiya.
Yeah, thank you, and happy Women's Day to all women out there. So for me, entrepreneurship is getting something done, an idea with your hands, with your mind, and trying to put that is beneficial to the community in which you simply, that is how I see it.
All right, thank you very much. And Didi? We can't hear you. No, maybe you should take the earpiece off. You can try now if you've taken the earpiece off. I think we lost her. Didi, are you still there? Okay, while we're waiting for her to join, so thank you for sharing that. I hear you all. It's a way for empowering, it's a way to uplift, it's a way for economic development. And just hearing all those things that you said. So I'm going to ask Hamdiya a question, because most times when we get into a space where we're talking about entrepreneurship and all that, we hear people always complaining. When we ask them, list your top 3 issues when it concerns, being in that space. And they always talk about funding. So this question I'm going to ask you. So do you think there's a role for higher institutions and colleges and universities in helping combat some of the complexities that we women that are running our businesses have as regards funding? So is there a role for HEIs in helping combat the complexities around female entrepreneurs and funding?
Thank you, Nneka. And yes, I mean, before I could even think about it, I always say yes. Educational institutions have, especially higher educational institutions, have real serious roles to play in it. Because that is where you get people a bit more grounded in the things they want to do, right? So Akpene said she's an educator, she's an entrepreneur, she's an IT entrepreneur. She might have learned the IT and then learned the business strategy that goes with it, right? And so oftentimes you realize that most women businesses are very small. And so getting access to finance becomes a problem. So when higher education, you are able to put together programs, to be able to ground them in the needs of what they need to do to be able to come out, with very good strategy around the idea they want to implement, around the business they want to do. It could enhance the way the business or the business is perceived or the company is perceived. And so there's this big role that educational institution should play, and I urge them to play, and so that we'll be able to get a lot more women entrepreneurs coming out of our schools, or even if not within our schools, program for women who are not even in the schools can be done by the institution so that we can get them more grounded and more prepared for the entrepreneurship journey ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Hamdiya. I see that Didi is back. Didi, is your mic open now? Are you able to join? I see you join with two different devices. Maybe you want to use the other one. You're muted, you're still muted on one. You're muted, you're muted.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Didi, we can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, Didi, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon and hi again. Happy International Women's Day. My name is Didintle Moreki and I'm from Organic Nationals in Botswana. When you were talking and you were introducing everybody else, I thought of a recent statistic that World Bank shared of how Botswana and South Africa are the leaders within female entrepreneurs in Africa. And I thought to myself, entrepreneurship for me means space, empowerment, as well as education. And these three things play a very pivotal role in creating an economy that we have women playing in the greatest space and the greatest powers. And thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Didi. Don't go away too quickly. So we know that you're in manufacturing, so you make organic skincare products, right? So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that women have about working in manufacturing, about setting up something in production? Because we've heard some people say things like, "Oh no, that's for men." But what are some of the misconceptions that you found out in your journey? You're muted, Didi, you're muted.
Thank you very much. I was saying, and I should apologize for the background noise in advance. The first misconception that is very much common is the fact that women cannot be manufacturing. And the second misconception that comes then is it's a hard job and women cannot do it. But the truth is that women can do hard things too, that's a very obvious fact. And it actually is all about design thinking when it comes to women in manufacturing and the ability to solve it. So common misconceptions such as it cannot be a woman's job or it's not a woman's industry are things that are so often found and that we also battle with ourselves. And it has also become an age misconception that young women can also not be in manufacturing. So such three things are small misconceptions that I find myself battling with on a daily basis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Didi. So I'm going to move over to Rose now. Rose, when you shared your intro and your thoughts around entrepreneurship, you mentioned that you used to be an entrepreneur, but you're in public service now. So I think one question I have to ask you is, what's the one thing that has helped you? So how did you navigate, power structures very early on in your journey as a public servant? Because you're a public servant. versus later in your career. So now you've done it for about 10 years or so, almost 10 years. So how did you navigate some of those power structures, and what was that like? What was that journey like? Especially because you're coming in as an entrepreneur. And then in answering that, you can also share with us why you switched, you changed your hats and your roles.
Okay, so thank you so much. So I would say I was an entrepreneur, I was a consultant in the human resource management space. And in the process of doing that, working with SMEs to help them with their human capital development, their human capital activities in their businesses. And so it's something I've always done, you know, since today is International Women's Day, it's about promoting women's entrepreneurship and supporting women entrepreneurs to create decent employment, achieve women's empowerment. So one thing that was key when I was an entrepreneur was I found that most people lacked access to information. So we keep saying, we keep talking about access to finance, but sometimes access to information helps. Like when I was an entrepreneur, I remember going to ministries that had the mandate of what I was doing, because if I want to look for something, I can map out who are the key government agencies I need to talk to support my business. You know, I'm into training. Okay, what are the key agencies? Like, take for instance, we have an agency called for Small and Medium Enterprise Agency Development of Nigeria, called SMEDEN, also the Ministry of Women Affairs. And while I visited those Women Affairs to share my proposal, to discuss with them, they were always excited. And they're like, oh, look, we have this program for women entrepreneurs. We don't have access. We don't know where they are. Maybe like women in farming, women in this, and, you know, so that way. So actually this switch, I was recruited as a consultant to work on a women empowerment strategy. And in the process of doing this work with my present boss, she actually converted me. So it wasn't really like a switch. It was something that I transitioned into because my background was in international studies and development. So for me, I think like others have said, you know, entrepreneurship is all about, you know, contribution to our economic growth and poverty reduction. In this space, I was fortunate to be transited into government, and it was something, it's still similar to what I was doing, and it's on the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And at the heart of the SDGs is SDG 5, which says gender equality for all. And, you know, it is key. Like they say, if we achieve SDG 5, we can achieve all of the Sustainable Development Goals. If we empower women, we empower a nation. We need to get more girls into school. If we educate a girl child, we've educated a whole nation. So it's similar, it's kind of connected and interrelated. So for me, I would say it was more of a transition that switched, because it's still what I do. And I'm also the Vice President of Enterprise Development Center, supporting women in the course of government. We've had, during COVID, we saw that more women businesses were more affected, because for the case of Nigeria, we have more women in the informal sector. But, you know, I've worked on, you know, key programs, initiatives to support women to cushion the effect of COVID-19. So I still think I'm still an entrepreneur in another way. Thank you.
So you're an entrepreneur, and that's those are one of the conversations that we're having that led to this panel. The fact that the reason why we're having this conversation is that the principle and the concept, the essence of entrepreneurship is all around innovation, is all around creativity, and you can take that anywhere. Okay, so thank you very much. So the next question is back at Akpene. So, excuse me, 1 second. Akpene, so I'm going to piggyback on what Rose started on, which is talking about entrepreneurship, but I want to link it to education now. So you're a graduate of Ashesi, and we know Ashesi as a brand on the West Coast really promotes that spirit of entrepreneurship, innovation, and creativity. So why did you start your business? And was there anything that occurred while you're an undergrad at Ashesi that led to you going into entrepreneurship?
Thank you for that question. So when I was an undergrad, in my first year, one of the courses we took was design thinking. I think now it's been renamed Fundamentals of Design and Entrepreneurship. So basically, that class takes you through thinking about or identifying problems in your environment, and then thinking about possible solutions, going out to the field and interviewing people and finding out what they think about it. So more market discovery. So when I got into my final year, although I was doing an IT related course, I really wanted to explore entrepreneurship further. And Ashesi gave me the opportunity to do that as a capstone project with other students. So for a whole year, we basically explored problems, and then we came up with business ideas. We came up with a business plan. We did pitches. So throughout that whole process, for me, it's ignited that already present ability or passion to solve problems in me. Because I remember when I was growing up, my dad would always say to think about what your interests are. Think about what problem you want to solve for others. I never knew it was called entrepreneurship till I came to Ashesi, and then there was a name given to it. There was an industry, so that kind of directed a lot of the things that I was already thinking about, how I wanted to serve communities, how I wanted to serve the people and the groups of people I cared about. So actually, in my second year in Ashesi, I was very interested in the creative arts and in creativity. I wanted a way to express myself. And in Ashesi, or the time I was in Ashesi, it was very tailored towards business or computer science. It was very technical. What I was doing, I felt. So I needed a way to express that creative spirit. And because the environment allowed for it, I basically just saw a problem in the space, which was that students who were creatively inclined in any way did not have any way to express that. And basically, I joined one of the clubs, the photography club, and we started doing fashion shows. Actually, probably the first fashion show that was organized in Ashesi, because that was the love I had for fashion and for creativity. And because we had already gone through these processes of thinking about a problem, seeing whether other people identified with that problem, and then trying to find ways to solve that problem, it came naturally to just start something like that. And it expanded to leaving Ashesi and then having a strong desire to continue with that creative pursuit. And basically, in my years exploring being a professional model, I realized that, and that goes to what Rose also mentioned, information. What I found out was that majority of creative entrepreneurs in Ghana especially did not have the information around how to build businesses around their craft and their creativity. So majority of the time, they will have projects, make money, and basically they couldn't sustain that for a long time. Or they will not get opportunities because they had not registered their companies, they had not built up a plan to be able to gain access to some of the funding opportunities and bigger opportunities that were out there. And Ghana is slowly becoming the hub, one of the hubs for creative talents all around the world. People are assessing the skills and talents of Ghanaian creatives. So that was something that I personally, because I was in the space, I saw, and it was a problem I faced as well. So I created my first company, Creators Anonymous, it was called, around that. And that the main purpose of that company was to provide information about digital means of marketing yourself, like basic business concepts that creative entrepreneurs could use to basically build themselves and their businesses so that they could make it into a career rather than like something that people see as a passion or passion project. So that is the journey towards starting my business. And that was all because I was very privileged to go to an institution that basically cultivated a certain passion that I already had in me. So I'm very, very grateful to have gone through that process. And I mean, I've been out of Ashesi for some years now, but still the ecosystem, the community that I've been exposed to still continue to nurture me in my journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So like I said, we have Amazons on this panel, and I have 1,000,001 questions I want to ask them. But I do know that we have other people that have joined us, and you might have some questions for either of them, either for Hamdiya, who's coming to us with so much experience in the funding and venture capital space, for our two entrepreneurs, Akpene and Didi, and then lastly for Rose, who wears multiple caps. She's done entrepreneurship, she's now in public space. So if you have any questions, you want to drop it in the chat box, please feel free and I'll ask them. Should you want to ask directly, please put your electronic hand up, and then I will call upon you to unmute your mic to ask your questions or make your contributions or your comments. Okay, so I'm going to just check now to see if there's any hand that is up before I continue with my questions. So no electronic hand up to ask them anything, and I don't think there's any question in the chat box. I see we have some of our men standing with us. Thank you very much. The he for she's. As we say, the he for she's. Okay. So while they're thinking about the questions or the comments or contributions that they want to ask, that gives me the opportunity to ask all the questions that I had when I found out that I would be interacting with you. So you just spoke now about what Ashesi did. So hearing you, I see that it sort of unlocked that potential or showed you where to go. So I'm going to ask Didi a question now, because Didi is also an entrepreneur. And she's been doing this for a minute. So this is for you, Didi. So from your own perspective, down south, further south, so we've listened to the Westerners talk. So you're representing the southern bloc of the continent. Is there something that you think we should be doing as higher education institutions, so the universities, the monoteknics, that can help to get more women interested in the venturing space, in entrepreneurship? From your perspective, do you think there's some things that we can be doing?
Thank you very much for your question. To be quite honest, I'm also a product of a higher institution developing within me. And I'm going to make the story quite quick. I was on my first year at Boto University. I had very bad acne, and my first customers were my lectures. And my last university proposal for an entrepreneurship module that I was doing with Boto University was the current business that I'm currently running right now. So I guess what you can see there is the importance of higher education and harnessing the tools, as well as giving the students the skill set in order to run successful businesses. And to this day, organization is going forward next week Sunday. I always go back to that proposal to remind myself of the things that matter, to how young me dreamt of this big businesses that was in 4 countries today. And that is an example of the role that I hope that other higher institutions would be able to adopt. Because see, you're not just giving your students education, you're also plowing within the future that they're going to be tomorrow. So you might as well give them something that is way more dynamic in this ever-changing world. And entrepreneurship on its own, I'm so sorry for that background noise, but entrepreneurship on its own is a very important step that actually empowers students, as well as empowers women to be able to stand on their own. And it's very much evident that the economy of Africa that we knew back then is changing. And it lies within the hands of youth who apparently by 2070 are going to be 60% of the population. So it's a responsibility as higher education institutions that we don't give these students for them to be doctors, and I have no offense against doctors, or teachers, and I have no offense against them. But we need solutions within Africa that are made by us for us. And the people who are responsible for this are the higher education institutions, because I'm a product of that. So honestly speaking, there's so much that needs to be done. And I do appreciate universities like Ashesi and Boto that are playing that role. But I'm saying that the higher education institutions play a very pivotal role in this. And look at me, I'm a product of that. Yeah.
Absolutely, Didi. Yourself and Akpene are products, and spot on for that. So I have a question from Paul, and I guess, anyone can take it. So Paul is asking, how have you been able to deal with the gender stereotypes which affect women in business in Africa? So either, I think all of you can take this because you actually all have won the entrepreneurship cap at one point on time and the other. So who wants to give that a shot? Dealing with gender stereotypes which affect women in business in Africa, on the continent. Hamdiya, Rose, Akpene, or Didi?
I can start. So
Right.
in a quite recent experience, I was an entrepreneur. So I was working in the sports space as an entrepreneur educator to young athletes in Ghana. So, unfortunately, in the sports industry, women are quite few, and I found myself in the space, and that was my first time experiencing any form of, I guess, stereotypical situations or scenarios. And I guess in navigating that situation, I found that one of the things that helped was, finding allies in the organization, allies in just my bigger community or circle. Because sometimes some of these things need to be said out loud. I think before it was quite difficult to say anything about it because I was second guessing whether, it was really happening, because I guess sometimes we are a bit idealistic about where the world actually is now, how people view women and how they view women who are in certain spaces. So I think having that allyship, or having people who you can talk to about it, and being confident enough to, or having already done some work of building rapport with people who might be in management positions, and then using that relationship to then voice out what is going on. Personally, that's how I approached it. I don't know. I mean, I'm still learning in my professional life how to navigate these situations, but that was how I approached that particular situation. And I'm hoping that, I guess, that could contribute to that question.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else want to jump in on that, dealing with gender stereotypes? And don't worry, we have more questions. There are questions coming up in the chat box. So that was from Paul. So there's one from Peter who says, why is it that despite the efforts of women, how come men seem to be more competitive than women when it comes to running businesses, especially those sectors that they tag male dominated? So there's so much effort going in, but how come it appears that men are more competitive? Anybody want to take a shot at that?
I actually want to answer that because I saw the question, I thought to myself, that is quite true. And the first statement that I'd like to make is the reason why that's the case is whether we come to admit it or not, there's so much inequality that still happens within the business space between men and women, whereby men are more trusted enough for other jobs than women are.
Sorry, Didi, can you just speak up a bit? There's quite a bit of noise at the background.
Let me just do this.
You just amplify your voice.
I will do so. And my answer to that was that it only comes down to there's still inequalities that exist within the business space or the workspace for men and women. And it's not that actually women are less competitive than men, but we need to just face the truth that men have more advantage than women. In the specificness that traditionally and in society, men are seen to be or seem to have less responsibilities in regards to family and all the other societal demands as compared to women. So when it comes to a woman first, and this is one thing that we should be aware of, she then has many roles that she's going to within the family. What And that is the disadvantage that actually comes in this particular case. It could be advantage, but it's mostly a disadvantage. And it's not a thing about competitiveness. It's about who has society placed the most responsibility on. And we should honestly be honest with that. Small women as compared to men.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Didi. So we have two more questions, but Rita's hand was up. So I want to ask Rita to. Hamdiya, were you saying something?
Yes,
yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what Didi said, that I think that I was reading a report I think about a month ago that was talking about even women seeking for jobs, right? If you see a job advert, a woman will make sure she ticks all the boxes before she applies. A man will apply when he ticks about 40% of the boxes. It's just the nature of women. And as Didi said, sometimes you just look at all the other things you need to deal with. And you want to make sure that you are as good as that to go, right? And so we tend to undersell ourselves than men. And so sometimes it shows, it comes out like women are not competitive, but women are. We sort of fight several battles, and we always want to make sure that we want to do what we are good at doing. And so we tend to undersell ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Hamdiya. And we saw recently, less than a month or two ago, one of the prime ministers, there's a woman saying that, look, she cannot give her best. And because she knows wholeheartedly that she cannot give her best, she's stepping down. And there was so much going on weeks after that, as to if it had been a man, they probably would have said, look, let's just go with the flow. But as women, it appears that we're wired slightly differently. So I have two more questions, but I noticed that Rita's hand is up. So I think she wants to contribute to this one of those questions. Yes, Rita.
Thank you, Nneka. So we are actually streaming live on LinkedIn as well, and there's a question from there. So I just want to share. So this question is coming from Titus in Kenya. He wants to know that how can one be assisted to bring to life ideas that can create business for locals and at the same time integrate with education, especially for children aged 4 to 18?
Okay. So any one of you want to take a shot at that?
Rita, you may have to read the question again.
Okay, so Titus wants to know, how can one be assisted to bring to life ideas that can create business for locals and at the same time integrate it with education, especially for the children within the age range of 4 to 18?
Well, I think that perhaps the way the question is framed, I'm not sure exactly what he meant by how can an idea be supported, but certainly he should look within the community or within the society that what he wants to do, and look for someone who is doing it or who is closer to doing it, and speak to the person to get a more varied perspective in terms of how it could be done, so that we can walk him through. Some of these things requires more coaching to frame the idea well.
Sorry, Hamdiya.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, it was dipping a bit. Yes, go ahead.
Because some of these ideas, you probably will need more coaching to be able to frame it in such a way that you can be able to seek the necessary help that you need. Because at an idea level, you need somebody to really hold you, to incubate the idea and make sure that it becomes something that can be utilized and be more helpful to society. So at this point, he needs to find somebody who can coach him or mentor him to perfect the idea, to be able to move on with it.
I have and thank you very much, Hadima, for that. I have very small background knowledge on the startup ecosystem within Kenya, but there are various incubators within the Kenyan ecosystem that actually can work a very great role, as Hamdiya has pointed out. One incubator that came at the top of my mind was my lab, but I'm very much happy to get with a conversation with you on LinkedIn after this, because it's vastness. But I do agree with what Hadima said, especially you being in Kenya, you're in what we often call the capital city of startup world in Africa. So you're at a very far better advantage than any of us here. It's all about looking within your ecosystem, and I'm willing to help you through that. Awesome.
All right. Yes, Rose, you wanted to say something to that as well. You wanted to add something.
So I think they've all said everything. I'm just coming from like the institutional perspective. Take for instance, we're more focused on SDG 5. The embrace theme for this year recognizes the marginalization of women and girls. So for us, as an institution, I think to break stereotypes, to break all the barriers that hinder women, we have to be intentional on a more gender responsive approach of programs and policies at government level. And, for the case of Nigeria, we've seen, integrated approach. We've had gender budgeting through the Minister of Finance, to encourage and promote the ecosystem for entrepreneurs, particularly for females. So I think there are different ways we can break stereotypes individually, even collectively as an institution or as government, and as an institution like the enterprise development centers through different programs, empowerment of women, having gender responsive approaches, gender budgeting, and rights, protecting women's rights and all. So that's just what I wanted to add in addition to what others have said. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So Titus from Kenya, I do hope that we did answer that extensively. So there's another question from Priya, and she says, we have seen women taking on senior positions within the corporate world, but much lesser in the business space. What do you think is the biggest hindrance for women to persevere and continue their business journey? What holds them back in this field? And I think this is just a question to all of us, not just the entrepreneurs, because we also will have a different perspective. So who would like to take a shot at that? You want me to read it again? But the essence is the fact that what's holding women back in entrepreneurship, what's the biggest hindrance for men to continue and persevere? So in essence, what Priya has obviously observed might be that women don't go the long haul the way men do. I think that's what that question is. So does anybody want to take a shot at that?
Yes, I do, Nneka. Thank you.
Okay.
So what I'd like to say about that is, I think that also goes to some answers that were given in prior questioning about, I guess, the nature of women being a bit more perfectionist. And I mean, in entrepreneurship, what they tell you if you speak with anybody in that space is that prepare to fail a couple of times, or a lot more times than you'd expect, but just get up. If you fall 7, get up 8. And sometimes we focus so much or dwell so much on the fact that something or an idea didn't work out, a business didn't work out. So therefore we basically just give up altogether. What I would say is for us to build that inner resistance towards giving up when we face some obstacles, and just keep going. I mean, there are some women who have been able to make it. So being able to learn about those stories, how they did it, and tapping from that experience to get back again into the race if you feel like you have dropped off somewhere is personally, it's not only towards women. Every person has to develop that skill. So we have to, build our own resistance towards giving up too quickly. And that's something that most young people, most women entrepreneurs face. And personally, that's something that I am also dealing with. So it's not only towards a particular gender, but women tend to just, it's all or nothing. If you don't get it right the first time, you feel like, okay, maybe let me look somewhere else. But maybe you just need to try another perspective or another idea again.
All right, thank you. Yes, Rose.
Yes, so for me, I think it's more of structural problems that prevail to reduce this gender gaps in entrepreneurship. Like you said, in the corporate, the role of a woman, matrimonial, and different laws affect these things. Poor access to resources, limited mobility to women, lack of political voice, representation in the society, unequality of family and household responsibility as well. These are things that can affect, women in business. So I would just say, for me, one of the things is structural problems.
Okay, structure. Okay. Also the fact, I like that you're pulling out the fact that women wear a bit more hats than men. So we have the care and the care economy, and there's so much that has to be done in that space that might not give them enough time and wherewithal to do more. Okay, so thank you very much. There's still more questions here. There's one from Ezekiel, and he says about the government agencies that help SMEs. How accessible are they given the bureaucratic nature of government institutions, which invariably slows down responses massively? Okay, so government agencies that help MSMEs in our respective country, in Ghana, in Botswana, in Nigeria, everywhere across the continent. So how accessible are they? So I think this would just be for all of us from our respective countries.
Okay, I can go first. For Nigeria, I think it can be accessible, but like in my previous discussion, or what I've said earlier on, is access to information. One thing I've noticed with entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs is the inability for them to map out the right and the relevant MDAs that has to do with their sector or their businesses. Like take, for instance, I have friends who are into agriculture, farming, the value chain, and, they keep waiting for manna from heaven. Let me put it that way, because sometimes I ask them, have you ever visited like the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development, just even may introduce your business, because sometimes these agencies, they are the implementing agencies, they have different programs. I was shocked to go to Women Affairs, even before working in government, where they were like, oh, Rose, we're looking for women on women in agricultural sector, want to send them to the US, but we don't even know where to start from. So sometimes it's the ability to like map out, if you're in agri, you need to look at who are the line ministry in charge of the sector, sectorial policies. Then you look at, you can now break it down to the agencies, because sometimes the agencies are specific to something, like Leatile is specific to loans, to Aqua Bora scheme, the Central Bank of Nigeria. There are tons of, I think for Nigeria, we have tons of initiatives, but also, people just assume government is not doing their best, but sometimes over government is waiting for the entrepreneurs. So for me, I would just say access to information is very key. If you map out your business and say, look, which is the line ministry, and that's how I was able to break through to the public space, because if I'm doing something for young people, I'll map out who are the key relevant agencies in charge of youth development. I found out the Ministry of Youth, I went to them, and they gave me listening ears, because it's their mandate, it's something they're doing. And of course, I looked at who has the mandate for SMEs. I found out there's something called SMIDAN, who is in charge of job creation. I found out the Ministry Trade and Investment, so you need to map out, it might not be easy, but sometimes mapping out these things, you'll be amazed on the opportunities and also some of these initiatives they do that businesses can tap into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Hamdiya.
Yeah. So for Ghana, I mean, I can say that for Ghana, some of the programs are actually online. So maybe what Ruth is saying, sometimes people are not really much aware because of the lack of information, but some of these programs are online. You actually apply online, you get your responses from online, and the turnaround time is actually shorter. But then also you see, usually if it's a government program and it's online, and you get tons of people applying. Some of them don't even qualify, but they apply. So there's a whole lot of processes to really cut, and make sure that those who really, have who meet the requirements gets it. But I know the turnaround time is not as long as it is, and there are specific programs for specific things. And as Rose said, sometimes people just hear and they don't look at the criteria where they fit in or not, and they just apply. And so you see that you get yourself bent out applying for programs that you don't meet the requirements. So having access to information is very key, so that you know exactly what you're applying for and what the requirements are, and the fact that you actually meet the requirements. Because we do have a lot of programs supporting women and youth in Ghana, especially in agriculture, in digitization and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamdiya. Okay, so there are two other questions here. I'm looking at time as well. Lorraine from Ryra University says, what steps are being taken to empower women with the financial capacity to start businesses, more so those of low income status? Hamdiya, that question is calling your name.
So the questioner, thank you for the question. So the steps basically is really knowing the business that you are running and how you prepare yourself to receive the money, right? So generally, we need to have specific targeted programs for women working from the rural areas, doing different kinds of business and different sectors. And we have different kinds of support for them. But what really happens is that you need to know your business through and through, and you need to be able to account for your business. And I think sometimes what affects most women is really trying to have a good understanding of the business and how the finances around the businesses, are kept and are maintained and are utilized. And if you're able to get that done and done well, sometimes it's really very easy for someone to come through and see what you are doing, really show what you are doing, to be able to come into support. The idea of financing is that sometimes we tend to go behind programs, so it comes to us and it looks as if it is coming as a grant. Sometimes some of the funding comes and it's credit, it's a loan. You have to pay back. So the person giving you the money wants to understand that this money, you can utilize it well and repay it back. Even if it doesn't have interest and it is just returnable grant, you may have to return that money. And so the first thing they want to say is, are you capable of really utilizing this money and paying it back? And the moment they are able to ascertain that, you are able to get that funding. So really, most preparation comes from the entrepreneur, and then the finance comes on the back of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to take one last question from Ononkwa. So Ononkwa says, what role can mentorship and networking play in supporting female entrepreneurs, and how can they access those type of resources? So mentoring and networking. So anybody want to take a shot for female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think I think networking is very important. Like they say, your network is your net worth, and collaboration is the new currency. So I personally, I've gotten to this stage of my life through networking. I met the enterprise development centers, management through their programs, through networking programs, and it has helped me a lot. Even while I was in government, my caused me to they've nominated me to be the vice president. So like I always say, is aside access to finance, is that access to information. There are tons of women networking programs or events that happens. And it's true that it's easier to meet people at networking events to share their business, and you can able to pivot to what you want, looking access, because it's that one person in your network that might not give you finance, but has access to the ministry or has access to different kinds of access. So I think networking plays a key role, because if you look at like the WIMBIs, the Enterprise Development Center, it's a huge network of women. You could see how we support one another, we collaborate, and if I'm government and we're looking for who would do something while we're having a program, whether food, supply, anything, I'll go into my network and say, hey, we are trying to do this. Who is able to supply these things? So it's easier. Networking is very key, and I keep saying it's your network. And mentorship plays a key role, because like someone said, to break stereotype, there are people who have broken the glass ceiling. And through mentorship, like someone once said in a program 2 days ago, like it's like a pipeline. Sometimes it's not that the men don't want to help women, but it's when they go to that pool, it's the quality of women in that pool they're looking for. So so this is where mentorship plays a key role in how to brand your business, how to because it's difficult. Women have to do 10 times more men do, and here people who can support you are mentors to say, look, like a lady was sharing how she dressed in a different way. I came to the federal ministries in Nigeria or in Abuja, and everybody was looking at her like they didn't really want to attend to her. They spent her whole day addressing her, teaching her how she should dress, rather than listening or attending to the problem that she has brought with. But after discussing with a mentor, she was able to say, look, it's not all the time we have to look the way we want to look. If it means you need to dress the way you need to dress to go to the federal ministries in Nigeria, which it's more cultural, they need decent dressing, then do it. And she said she changed. People have started listening to her. It has opened more doors. So I think mentorship plays a key role. Like me, I've been mentored by a lot of people, where I sit down, and that's one thing my mentor taught me about access to information. If I tell him, sir, I need to do a youth empowerment program, he will say, map out all the ministries in charge of youth development, map out all the private sector groups that are doing, CSRs in charge of youth initiatives or youth development. And it was from there, he'll say, okay, if it's GE, I have a contact in GE. So he taught me that, and that has helped me throughout my life to this point. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much
Can I just
for that. Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Is that Didi?
Yes, it's Didi.
Yes, good, fantastic. Yes, go ahead.
The practical steps of how to access these resources. And I see that the question was asked from someone who's in Nigeria. And I just want to comment a side comment before I go into the answer. As there are 3 countries, I'd say, in Africa that are the hub of entrepreneurship, technology, as well as development funding: Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. So whenever I see any questions from these 3 countries, I always ask myself, if you only knew how much advantageous you are. This is because funding from Silicon Valley is looking at those countries. Now let's get into the practical steps. Female entrepreneurs, the first website is VC4. VC4 is a pool of mentorship and entrepreneurs that have branches in West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. I am sure without a bet that there are certain mentors who have registered for VC4 within Nigeria. The second one then would be linking on to what Rose said. Look for agencies, parties, hubs, incubators that are within your jurisdiction, that are actually responsible, or their mandate is for supporting female entrepreneurs. The third thing is SheTrade is very huge within Nigeria. That's one thing I know. The second thing again is, it just went out of my mind. It's an export and trading program again, which I know is very huge in Nigeria. So practically and resource-wise, be a friend of incubator hubs and innovation hubs that are within your jurisdiction. And the second practical step within this is be a friend of current news, specifically within the startup world. You will not miss anything. I am a startup in Botswana, but I'm so in tune with startup news in Nigeria because I know that it first starts in Nigeria, it hits Ghana, it's going to hit Kenya, and then Southern Africa is going to adopt. So because Nigeria is lead, oh, thank you, Rose, for sharing that. Because Nigeria is such a leader within this ring of entrepreneurship and startup world, we always follow suit what Nigeria and Kenya is doing. So you are at the hub of where everything else is doing. You just need to plug yourself into what everything else is happening. And part of plugging yourself is find out what's happening within the hubs, find out what's happening within the innovation programs, find out what's happening within the angel investing programs, and make sure that you're at the center of it. And I can bet you this, you are going to find a mentor within that. And after finding mentorship within that, you're easily going to find funding for your business within that. And last thing before I get kicked out is AfriLabs. AfriLabs headquarters is in Nigeria, and the same as ABAN, the African Business Angel Investors Network, is in Nigeria. So find out what's happening within your location and plug yourself within that. You will not be lost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Didi. Hamdiya, did you want to say something? No, okay, fantastic. So it's 3:07. I know when Rita first started, she had said we would have this conversation up to 3 or thereabouts. So thank you so much for your insights and for everything that you said. Before I wrap up, just one thing that
we have 13 minutes more, so we can open it up to participants to also come in, yes, and share ideas.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I would like to ask if there are any more comments or contributions or questions that we might have for any of our panelists. So Akpene, Didi, Rose, and Hamdiya. And if we don't, I'd like them to just, their last words, so like parting shots, before I do a proper wrap-up, while I'm waiting for our audience, our participants on this platform to share. Yes? Words to entrepreneurs, to would-be entrepreneurs, people that are thinking, okay, they're in public sector, they're working in corporates, and they're thinking, oh, maybe entrepreneurship is something I should do. Or for those that are currently there. Parting words from either of you?
Yes.
Yes, Akpene, yeah.
I'll say two things. The first is that the biggest limitation or challenge you ever have is in your head, because you basically set the pace for what you think you can do and you can't. And if you set your mind to something, if you are determined to find a solution to a problem, if you are determined to be an entrepreneur, you will be an entrepreneur. People have done it, others are doing it, so why not you? And secondly, I would say that, I mean, the market has all the answers. If you're thinking about ideas, just go out, be observant, be present, see the opportunities. I don't call them challenges or problems, unless I'm referring to problem solving, but there are opportunities out there. If you do some introspection, you might find that there are some opportunities from your own experiences in your community, in just living everyday life, and you need to be plugged in and be able to see all these opportunities to solve these problems for people around you. So that's what I'd like to say. Don't limit yourself, and also be present, and the opportunities are all around you for you to find and solve.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, Didi.
Okay. I'm gonna try to speak as loud as I can. And what I can say as my parting words is, firstly, Africa's problems are a lot, And it's in our hands for us to solve them, because there's nobody else who's going to solve them. And because of that, it is our responsibility to have our hands ready and to go out and do the hard work. And doing the hard work is part of entrepreneurship. So to anybody who's out there who is willing to join this whole entrepreneurship dungeon, all I can say is knock the door and don't give up from knocking. And knock and push so many doors as you can, because we are waiting on you. And the next generation is waiting on you. And you can't give up, not now. And the second thing that I can say is your resilience matters. And that's one thing that has always made us African women, is that we're this resilient breed that God has created. And because we're resilient, we need to continue being resilient. We can't give up. Once again, for the next generation. And once again, I'm utterly proud of each and everybody who stands the role and says, I'm willing to get down to the dirty work, because we can do the hard work and we can do the hard things. And we can build an Africa that our generation and our children are going to be so proud of. So once again, happy International Women's Day. And let's continue doing the hard work, because we can do the hard work. So those are my parting words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. And then Hamdiya and then Rose.
Yes, so I just want to say that, yes, opportunity abound. There is much to do. There are so many things out there. Akpene said it. I mean, when you go out there, you'll be inspired, and there are so many things that we can do. Just be resilient. Put yourself in a network that could be helpful to you. So mentorship, coaching, very important. Higher education has significant role to play. If you listen to the story of Akpene and Didi, you know that higher educational institutions have incredible role to play, and we would like them to play that role, especially because we have lots of young people, and we are going to be the youngest continent, you know, in the world in the next 50 years. So there is so much for us to do. But what I want to leave with all of us is that always think big, but start small. Think big, start small, put yourself in the right network so you can move fast. Happy International Women's Day to all of us. And I look forward to networking with all of you and keeping in touch. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rose.
For me, female entrepreneurs often face challenges in starting and growing their businesses because of gender and cultural-based barriers in Africa. But one key thing I could say is entrepreneurship training programs should incorporate creativity, technical and soft skills that help female entrepreneurs remain in the equitable business system. You know, we need to have those skills. And my final word would be, the recipe for success is tenacity and determination. And Didi said, you need to be resilient. We're women and we're powerful. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. And from me, what I can say is that listening to these Amazons that we put together for International Women's Day 2023 under the Education Collaborative is one word. And for me, it's nice. So I like acronyms. That's how I learn when I have acronyms. So nice. When you say nice girl, a nice boy, so it's nice. And the N is for networking. So for entrepreneurship, the importance of networks, it's so important. We can't overemphasize that. So you need to be in the right networks. You need to plug into the right networks. I have to make sure that when you're in those networks, that you actually are giving and receiving. So not just giving, not just receiving, but both. You must do both. The I for nice is information. Rose kept on talking about that. And, you know, she kept on saying it that, you know, information is key, but most people don't know where to find information. Without information, you cannot move forward. So in the world of entrepreneurship, information as it regards data, where, what, how, information is so key. And you can get information from different places, but you must have the cap on that you're looking for that information that will help you. The C is for confidence. So one of the questions was around, you know, women appearing that we don't have as much confidence as men. We want to wait until we can tick all the boxes Okay. But Didi kept on saying something. We can, she says, we should go and knock on those doors. Go knock on those doors knowing that you can do the work and that you're ready for the work. We must go out with networking. And the E is the reason why this platform exists, educational institutions. So this is part of what Ashesi has done under the Education Collaborative for the continent. We can hear from two entrepreneurs here how they wouldn't be doing what they're doing if not they went through a university that planted those seeds, that helped them see that they can do it and they can add their value. So we're seeing that with higher education institutions, whether it's a polytechnic, a university, a polytechnic, we can make the difference. We've always talked about it for decades, town meets gown. But the HEIs of the future on the continent has to do one thing, and that is to start to churn out wealth creators and not wealth seekers. With that, I want to say thank you. And for all those that listen, nice. So networking, information, confidence, and power for education institutions. Thank you, lady. Happy International Women's Day to everybody. And thank you for tuning in. And I'm handing over now back to Rita.
Thank you very much, Nneka.
Don't go. We haven't taken our pictures. My Amazons, don't leave, please. We normally would take a picture.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nneka, Akpene, Rose, Hamdiya, and Didintle. It was a very inspiring conversation. And what I'm leaving with, and I'm sure everyone is leaving with, is the acronym NICE. Networking, information, confidence, and educational institutions. That will stay with all of us. It's time for us to take a good picture, and then I'll call on Roland to lead us to take the picture.
So I think we have a good number now. So we're going to start. So if you're ready, please look into the camera, give us a nice smile. Okay, so I'm going to count down to three. Count down to one, sorry. 3, 2, 1.
Thank you very much, Roland. It's time for us to do a quick evaluation of our session, and in our chat box is an evaluation link. It will take less than 2 minutes to fill. So kindly spare 2 minutes of your time to fill our evaluation form. Whilst we are filling the evaluation form, I would like to thank you all for joining the session, and also to remind you that as part of the series of activities for the Entrepreneurship Month, we'll be having our next session on the 15th of March, same time at 1 p.m. GMT, and same time for the Eastern African time as well. And then this session is about mapping out entrepreneurial activities of higher education institutions. The session will explore or will help institutions to map out entrepreneurial activities in their various institutions' ecosystems towards entrepreneurship education of students. And the session will be led by Dr. Sena Agboja, who is the Senior Lecturer and Head of Business Administration Department here at Ashesi University. So it will be great to have you all register and join the session. It will be more of a workshop, and it promises to be very exciting as this current session and the one we had during our opening as well. So thank you very much. It will be good for you that institutions will sign up and come with colleagues to help carry out the activities as well. So please come ready to map out your activities. Okay, so thank you all once again, and thank you to all our speakers and our moderator for today's session, and thank you for taking the time to join the session. If you haven't filled the evaluation form, kindly do that. And also lastly, a last announcement is to invite you to our June convening, which is scheduled for June 13th to 16th. So if you haven't registered, kindly register. We'll send out emails to everyone and we'll put the registration link in the chat box as well. Thank you and thanks for joining the session. Bye.